Hello there and welcome to Tuesdays with Annette. That's right, it's home ec with Annette time and we're in the kitchen going to make a fabulous dessert that I think you're going to really love, and we're going into book 6, the big book. It's got the masterclass in it as well. But book 6 is where we're going today, and this is the recipe, the apple berry pie. It is such a delicious, easy way to do pastry. Let's get cooking with it, because I think for anyone that's not really experienced with pastry, you're going to be really impressed with how to do this one. So this is what we're making today. Now let's look at the winners from last week's show, which was for the fettuccine carbonara from book 2. Kathy Poynton did a great picture up. That's how you win, is by putting your picture of the recipe up for the week. Claire Young did it as well, and Anne Churchman. All are winners this week. So look out for your personally signed copy of book 2, girls. And of course we'll do it again later in the show. Okay, so now first of all, let's look at the props we need, because I want to make sure you've got everything so you're good to go and fabulous. So we need a rolling pin, okay? I also need you to have a ruler, because we want to measure the size of the pastries. That way you make sure you get it to the right size that you need. I've always got my little scraper here because I think I'll need it, but I'm not sure. We need a wooden spoon. We need a pastry brush, because we're going to brush the milk over the top. Now you can use either a fork or a whisk, because we're going to be using that in the recipe. I've got a spoon here because I'm going to scoop out the marge to melt, and we've got the measure spoons as well. Now we've also got some measure cups. I've got a glass one to melt the marge and the plastic to do the others. I've also got up here a bigger one to measure the flour, and a bowl to do the flour. There's also, I've got these here, I've got the strainer, and I want it to sit quite high because we're going to strain the berries. You'll see that as we go, and I don't want the berries sitting in the syrup, because I want it to dry out as much as we can, and I'm going to use that for it as well. We need a sifter. That's right, we need a sifter, and I'm going to use little rubber gloves here, because when you're making pastry, I just think it's better than getting it all under your nails. Up to you what you do. I've got a little tea towel here ready to go, and I've got my scales over here to weigh my margarine. So before we look at the ingredients, let's go wash our hands, and I'm going to go over here. Get your hands all hygienic and fabulous for the cook, even though I'm going to put rubber gloves on. Or are they rubber? No, I don't think they're rubber. But anyway, they're the thin gloves, and I always buy the ones that are powder free, because I hate that when you put the ones on, you get this white coating all over your hands, and then you wipe it down your clothes and it is a mess. Alrighty, so now I hope you've downloaded the recipe, because I always share the recipe with you on Tuesdays, so you make sure you get the recipe you need if you don't have the book. And also, the recipe's on the website. You can get it, plan ahead, and put out all the ingredients and ready to cook with me. So are you ready to cook? Okay, so we need an egg. We need Floralite margarine, which we need 45 grams or 3 tablespoons. We're only going to use the egg white in this recipe. Now we've got cooking spray, skim milk, white sugar, both flours. We're going to use self-raising as well as plain, and that's my little take on this, and I'll explain it as we go why I do that. We also have the fruit. Of course, this is really important, and I'm a lazy cook, you know that, so I'm using canned, because I just find it really works easily. So we've got a big can of the pineapple, and I've got 2 cans of the mixed berry. So we're going to get into that soon. And I've got some cling wrap as well, because I'm going to put that over the marge. So let me put this over to the side, and let's get started. Okay, so what I want to do first is sift the flour and get that ready in the bowl. So you need to get your sifter out, and you can use these type of strainers. They work as a good sifter too. Now I'm going to start with 1 1/4 cups of plain flour. So let's measure that out. So get your measure. I use the bigger cup measure for this to make it easy, so I can do it in one go. And we want 1 1/4. And it's important that you stick with the measurements and the the ones I give you, because if you put too much flour in, then it's going to be too dry, and if you put in too little, it'll be too wet. So I'm putting that in my bowl. There's the plain flour, and I will use some flour later to roll out the pastry, so I'm going to leave that lid off. And now I'm going to put in 1/4 cup. You've got your self-raising flour. We just need 1/4 cup. And why I do this is because it just means the pastry is just that little bit lighter. You know, like it's not too hard. But that's all we need of the self-raising. I can put my lid on that. Push that over to the side. Now we sift this. So you've got both your flours in. Sift it in. And if you don't have a sifter, you know what, don't worry about it. Just fold it through together so they combine. Our flours are very good here in Australia, but I just like mixing them so they're both combined together in there. Perfect. Don't need that anymore, so let's put that over here out of the way. And the next thing you want to do is get your white sugar. And we need 3 tablespoons. Now it's a flat tablespoons. 3 tablespoons. There we go. Good job. And remember, my tablespoon is 15 mils. So if you've got the Australian ones, the big round ones, for example, that's 20 mils. So we don't want that because you would have put 3 extra teaspoons of sugar in then, and that's not great. All right, so now get your wooden spoon and just combine the sugar with your flour. That's it. Now we can just leave that over here for a minute because I want to do some other things to get to putting it all together, okay? So first of all, we're going to get the marge in the microwave because we want to melt it. So have you got your flour already? Now, I just find it easier to measure the 45 grams. You could use your tablespoons. It's 3 tablespoons. So 45, let's see how we go. And you'll just microwave this for, I think, about 30 seconds. And I do recommend you do it on a lower heat. Don't do it on like high. And put some cling wrap over the top because this means you're not going to get it splattering all over your microwave. So that's flour light's done. Now in the microwave, I said on about 7. If you're like mine's on up to 10. And I'm going to do that on 7 for 30 seconds. But while I'm here, hello, the oven is preheated to 180 degrees. So have you got that happening? Because we need that heated and ready to go. So now, while that margarine is melting, let's get the fruit organised. Because we want to drain them as best we can. Now let me get my fork in here. And the apple, you know, it used to be a bit drier than it is at the moment. I've noticed it's quite wet these days. So let's drain it. I tell you to drain the blueberry or the mixed berries, but let's do the apple as well because you can see there's a bit of liquid in here, and we really don't want a lot of liquid, otherwise it'll seep out. Now that was an 800 gram. Now I've basically been in Woolies today buying this because I couldn't find mixed berries in Coles. And so we're using Woolies brand today. Now, when I think about it, I know that in Victoria, Woolies is called Safeways. And I wonder what it's called in your state. Like in Perth and Adelaide, what is it called there? I don't know. I'd love to know. Write it in the comments so I can find out. So see, I got quite a bit of liquid out of that apple. So we're going to put that in the bowl. So you can see there, look at, I got quite a bit of that out of there. So that's good that we did that. Now I'm going to take it back and we're going to do the berries. And you say to yourself, why, Annette, why are you using canned? Well, let me answer that if you are asking yourself. Now, the reason I use the canned mixed berries is, one, it's just sweeter. If you use frozen, I know they hold up better and you've got the better colours, but they're not sweet. And the apple's not real sweet. And if this isn't real sweet, then you're going to get quite a tart pie. So up to you. You can use the frozen if you want, but I don't know if it'll be a bit sour. So now see how that's sitting up out of the top? That's perfect. Let's just push the fruit over to the side. I might just, and you've got to be gentle with it because it breaks up. But there we go. All right, so our fruit's ready. So let's finish the pastry. And this is really a good base pastry if you're ever wanting to make a sweet, or if you wanted to do a savoury, then don't put the sugar in. I remember making a chicken pie once and forgot about the sugar, and it doesn't go well. Sweet pastry and chicken, no. All right, so there's our marge, lovely melted. Now we're going to put in that 1/4 cup of skim milk. And I'm going to add that to the melted margarine because I want to cool it down a bit. So in it goes. Perfect. And then what we do is add in the egg white. Now this is how I do it. This is my sort of structure when I'm doing pastries and things like that, is I add that in, throw out the yolk because we don't want that 6 grams of fat, no thank you. And they're either with a fork or a whisk. I wrote fork because not everyone has little whisks, so I know everyone has forks, hello. So there you go. Mix that in well. I mean, so basically we've got our flour and sugar ready. We've done the egg, the marge and the milk. So this is dry, this is wet. It's not hard, is it? And then in it goes. And this is where you'll use your trusty scraper. See, I knew I'd use it somewhere in the recipe. Okay. So, mixing it through. You'll get to a point, I find with pastry, you've got to get in and mix it with your hands to really get that moisture in to that flour. So you get to a point where you go, okay, now it's time to get your gloves on. So if you have these and you prefer to do it, you don't have to, but it's how I like to do it. Thanks for joining me today. Now, if you've just joined me, hello, where have you been? You know where I am at 2 o'clock every Tuesday, and that is in the kitchen at Symply Too Good headquarters, and we're making apple berry pie. Oh my gosh, the word pie. It's just beautiful to say. So now get all that off the spoon. And this is where you get in and give it a mix. Now, the French word for this type of pie that I'm doing is called a galette. Is that right? Galette. A galette. They call it galette. I call it easy peasy pie because it's so much easier. I get intimidated by a pie plate because you've got to get it up the top, you know, you've got to spread it around, and that's a bit difficult for some. So, are you keeping up with me? Pastry done. I know, how fabulous. Now remember, this recipe is on the website. If you're thinking, gee, I don't have book 6, what am I going to do? Well, I've got you covered. Spray your tray. Here's my tray. That's ready to go. Now I'm going to get some more plain flour, but before I do that, I might just give my berries a little mix. Just gently. We want that juice out. That's looking pretty good actually. We'll leave it over there. And now we're going to grab some of the plain flour. You could use self-raising if you want, but I always tend to use plain. Get out your pastry. I'll put this over in the sink. Okay, get your pastry and we're going to roll it out. Well, what I do is we want to make this a round shape, okay? And so what I tend to do is try and get it into that round shape, and we will roll it out in a minute. But what I do is I start by just doing it myself, just to get it started. And if you see it opening up anywhere, just close it off. It is very rustic, this pie, and I love the rustic look, so don't agonise over it being perfect, because this doesn't need to be. All right, let's get the rolling pin out. Okay, so I tend to just get some from the bench. Yeah. And we're going to roll it out. Now we want it to measure 32 centimetres, because that way we're going to get it the right size to be able to turn up the edges, how this pie works. All right, so that's why you've got the ruler. Trying to keep that round shape as best you can. And as I said, we'll measure it in a minute and see how we're going. So are you up to me? Are you rolling out your pastry? How easy is the pastry to make? And it's such a great dessert. It serves 12 and it has 2.1 grams of fat a serve. I know, how amazing is that? It's called guilt-free pie, the Annette way. All right, so I need to get this as round as I can. What do you reckon? Do you reckon I'm at 32 centimetres yet? If you're not sure, get your measure out. So most rulers only go to 30. So you can see I've still got a little bit of a way to go, just a couple of centimetres. So let's keep pushing it out. Yep. Here we go. I think we're looking pretty good. Where's my ruler? Yep. Well, we've certainly got it that way, so I might push that in a bit. And let's do another centimetre to make sure it's right. That's looking good. Okay, so if you're up with me, what you do now is you get your tray handy. And I mean, it will go over the edges of the tray because it's not wide enough, but you'll see what I do and it doesn't matter. So carefully roll up your pastry. And this is good that we've had this here so it's not sticking. Bring your baking tray over, and then, booyah, there you go. Your pie base is ready. All right, so let me just get my cloth. I'll just wipe off a little bit of this flour, and we'll mix the fruit. So if you've got your berries and your apple drained, yes? That's really important to have it drained, okay? So this is where we've got our can and our 2 cans of berries. Look at the liquid that came out of those 2 cans. I mean, that's a lot, isn't it? Okay, so what I want you to do is just a little bit of folding, not a lot. You could replace the berries, you know, with maybe canned apricots or canned peaches if you wanted. But I think that's looking good. So now I'm going to bring this in, and I want to put this in the centre. So I'm going to pick it up, make it as high a mound as you can. Yep. Oh my gosh, this is such a great recipe. See how I'm putting a lot of it in the middle? And I'm looking at how it's going to look when I flatten it out a little bit. So I'm getting a few berries here and there. Okay, how's that looking for you? All right, now I'm going to take this over and I'm going to take my gloves off at this point. I don't need them anymore. So what we do now is we're going to lift up the pastry. And this is why it's so easy, because you just bring it up. It's a bit of a rustic old pie, isn't it? That's why it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just going to push that down a little bit. Oh my gosh, look how good that looks. I'm a bit impressed with myself. All right, so now you want a teaspoon of skim milk because we're just going to glaze the pastry. So let's, teaspoon of milk, it's in the recipe, you know that's there. And get a dry measure, and we want a teaspoon of sugar as well. And this just goes over the top. So, pastry brush. Now if you don't have a pastry brush, you could just use your fingers, I reckon, and just wet the top. And this will help get the sugar to stick as well. Oh my gosh, imagine serving this up to your family and friends. They'll just go, who is this gourmet cook? Hello, you've been watching Annette Sym. Home Ec with Annette. I know, it's always easy recipes on this show. All right, so now I'm going to get a teaspoon of sugar. I tend to put in my hand because I find that doing it like that way with the spoon, I don't get as much control because I want it on that pastry. Now remember, you've got to have your oven preheated to 180 degrees. Oh gosh. It's out of book 6. And there we go. Have you got yours ready to go in the oven? Okay, well I'm going in. I'm going to put the timer on for 30 minutes. It takes between 30 and 35. And if it still needs a little bit more after that, you want it to be nice and golden brown. There we go. 30 minutes. I just want to wash my hands. Got a bit of that sugar on. So there we go. Recipe done and dusted, and all you've got to do now is wait for it to cook and enjoy for dessert. Now, what would you put with it? That's the thing. Now let me show you. I made one earlier because you know I like to show you a finished product. So here we go, and everyone will look different because they're free fall. So here we go. This is the apple berry pie. Easy peasy Japanesey with that beautiful pastry. I've decorated with a little bit of my mint from my garden. And you can see this is going to be a joy to eat. Now, as I said, what would you put with it? So you could put the low-fat ice cream. You could do custard. Now, I love custard with this. So I've got a couple of samples for you to look at. We've got that custard, which is the Paul's low-fat custard. So that's a good one to use. But if there's only like you or a couple of you at home, or you want to, not everyone wants custard, then this isn't a bad one either because it's in the pouch. But what I do is when I'm making it, I just make the homemade. And if you're doing it just for yourself, for example, you would use half a cup of skim milk with 3/4 of a teaspoon of sugar and 2 teaspoons of custard powder, flat teaspoons. Mix that together, you've got custard for one. So how easy is that? And now, if you would like to win book 6 and be able to make this anytime you like with all the other fabulous recipes in it, you just got to like, share, and in the comments, I want to see your pie. Brag away, put it in the comments. I mean, who knew weight loss could be so deliciously healthy? I know, guilt-free pie. Remember, 2.1 grams of fat. You can freeze it. I mean, if you by chance have leftovers, I've never had leftovers, everyone wants it. But on next show, which is Thursdays with Annette, I'll be back with my apron on at Simply Too Good headquarters, and I hope you join me because we're making a soup. I thought, let's do something beautiful and toasty and homey over winter, and it's my creamy chicken and vegetable soup out of book 5. It is my 3 daughters love this. They fight over it. It's that good. But next Tuesday, I'm already thinking about next Tuesday, and I'm going to do what my mum, God bless her, thinking of your mum, she loved this. I'm making it in tribute to her. It's my red salmon potato pie out of book 4. It is so good. So I think we're all pied out here. So just remember, if you want any more tips or recipes, go to simplytoogood.com.au, and I'm going to catch you on Thursday, 2 o'clock. Bye now.